In 1990, Christopher J. Scarver was awaiting trial in a Wisconsin jail accused of killing 27-year-old job trainer Stephen Lohman. It was then that the arrest of a 31-year-old Milwaukee man was announced. He had the remains of 11 men and boys in his apartment. That man later confessed to killing a total of 17 men and boys in Ohio and Wisconsin. He also confessed that he would sometimes mutilate and cannibalize his victims. Scarver came to know of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer much like the rest of America via the news. But Scarver got to see more of Dahmer than most people. Both men were convicted murderers serving out life sentences together in the Columbia Correctional Institution outside of Madison. Although Scarver was also a convicted murderer, he couldn't stomach the things he'd heard Dahmer had done. Scarver later told the New York Post that Dahmer would antagonize inmates by making food look like severed body parts and leave them for people to find. Scarver said he kept his distance from Dahmer until 1994. Scarver claims when the two were left alone in the prison gym, he bludgeoned Dahmer to death with a metal rod. He also killed another inmate at the same time named Jesse Anderson. According to what Scarver told the New York Post, Anderson and Dahmer antagonized him, so he killed them. Scarver initially pleaded not guilty of the prison murders, claiming insanity.
At his first court appearance, Scarver entered the courtroom singing.
Rain or shine, sharing your dreams, your heart and your mind.
Swing football, swing feel I drop my finger, them no stush. 7.94, I take a look, watch it Yo, a dead boy, them from me make it wrong. Anything I talk,
But he later changed his plea to no contest. He did so in exchange for being moved to a federal prison instead of serving out his life sentences in a state penitentiary. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences on top of the first one. The insanity plea wasn't out of the blue. When Scarver was awaiting trial for killing Lohman in 1992, he told the psychiatrist that voices had urged him to commit that murder. Specifically, he said it was the voices of a family, a mom and a dad, a boy, and a little girl. Scarver shot Lohman in the head 4 times, then made a manager write him a check for $3,000. He also stole the manager's credit card. Scarver went to his girlfriend's home, where hours later, police found him sitting on the stoop of her apartment. He had the check, the credit card, and the gun he used in the murder in his pocket. Scarver told the psychologist he'd never been in trouble with the law or even been in a fight. He said the voices of the family told him everything was going to be all right and it was meant to happen like this. The New York Times reported that he said the voices also told him, quote, "I'm the chosen one." Scarver has been in jail or prison since he was about 20 years old. According to his webpage, he was placed in solitary confinement for 18 years after killing Jeffrey Dahmer and Jesse Anderson. But he, quote, earned his way out and into a medium security prison. When he was initially arrested for murder in 1990, his girlfriend was pregnant and gave birth after Scarver was sentenced. The child was named Chris after his father, and the two maintained a relationship through letters, according to what his son told CNN in 2014. During his time behind bars, Scarver became a poet and wrote a book titled The Child Left Behind, Poetry of Christopher J. Scarver. Scarver also writes short stories, musical compositions, and songs, and creates art. He's proactive in writing prison policy proposals and initiated the American Prisoner Repatriation Act. Scarver also tries to encourage his son. In part of a letter the younger Chris shared with CNN, Scarver wrote, "Tough times don't last, tough people do, and you are the toughest kid I know."
Call on the bar for me name. Berry boy in a house, close shall the grave. Puss all around up if you feel on a brave. Have couple dog bleach in a tree for deals. Smoke up low, make a ton of fire. 7.6, just land in your yours. Wanna send me through, we have some wanna make it yours. Search them my last, my head like yours. Squeeze the trigger on the bum, I might take got a pointy. Knock up with the 40, got a 90. Full of red teeth, T-sharp and full of dot, like gingivitis. Plus I said that I'm this. When you see I see. Stomach and yell the neighbor, you people like they full of shots, full of try me. Killer them, evil grimy.
Yo, dead boy, them coming with the wrong mouth. Anything I call them ready for them. Sunshine in fire, me never care who I love. You know that. You a quick speed in mental. At the pass swing cast when me send fire, me never cheat. TikTok from my elder, push me a zine, a face dog, we arrange that. Yo, nothing of a send cast, up a dead bug, get my gun.
Yo, I want boost them up, drive out in the truth. I was with up for kill a scruple, those shoot and ask a woofer son.
Gunman, ready, man, you take it.
1748. Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered in 1994 by a fellow inmate serving time in the same Portage, Wisconsin prison. This inmate was Christopher Scarver, whom also murdered another inmate later that same day. Scarver said that he kept his distance from Dahmer while in prison because Dahmer had developed friction with other inmates.
Some people who are in prison are repentant, but he was not one of them.
Scarver said that Dahmer, while eating, would arrange his food in certain shapes to represent human limbs, and then he would cover the food with ketchup, as if to represent blood.
I never interacted with him.
Until November 28th, 1994, that is. Dahmer, Scarver, and another inmate were instructed to clean the bathrooms, which left them unshackled, and they were not monitored by staff at this point in time.
These islands were declared neutral. You know why? Because they said that the carriers from those islands will let those islands build their own canoes, walk canoes, and carry then your 60 warriors. Why they let them? The armed forces together, their forces together. And the enemy, the Spanish, the British, and the French. Another thing was happening at that same time. What they did, one of the ways of treating the Spanish, what they would do, when the Spanish were in their caravans or whatever, and they would go to the sort of very rocky and stuff. They would trick the Spanish ship in a certain direction from the canoe. And then they would find themselves on rocks and other areas where the ships would what happened when they did that? They would kill
clip full of red, tell them all about this.
They were trying to divide, say how
Scarver, at some point, had acquired a newspaper clipping which detailed the murders Dahmer committed. Needless to say, Scarver wasn't a fan, and found the details to be, quote, disgusting. And despite this, the inmates still tried to work together. That is, until Scarver went to retrieve a mop and felt someone poke him in the back while he wasn't looking. When he turned around, he saw Dahmer and a fellow inmate, quote, laughing under their breath.
I looked right into their eyes, and I couldn't tell which had done it.
Scarver didn't retaliate at that point in time. Instead, he waited for all of them to go their separate ways, and that's when he decided to follow Dahmer to the locker room and confront him.
because they were against the French. They were bitterly against the British. Finally, when they did, they were the ones that descended from convincing Dominica to believe it used to be British Honduras. So you can see what happened. That is one of the things that I chose to tell. A lack of sovereignty, dependence, and all the other negatives that have been associated with us through how centuries of contact. So that is a phrase I don't like. Having said that, you may think you've heard it so often, but there's no use mentioning it again. But or whatever is still with us. And you know, it's as old as 500 years ago. Let me use the Columbus period to give you an example.
He pulled out the newspaper clipping he had obtained and presented it to Dahmer, asking him if he'd really committed those horrible crimes. At that point, Dahmer tried to make his escape from the locker room, but things turned violent. Scarver took out a metal bar which he'd stolen earlier from the prison's weight room and proceeded to strike Dahmer with it, crushing his skull. He then sought out the other inmate involved in the backpoking incident, Jesse Anderson, and killed him in the same manner. Scarver went on to say that he believed prison officials actually wanted him to kill Dahmer. He believes they knew that he didn't like Dahmer, so they paired them up intentionally.
They had something to do with what took place.
In the aftermath, Scarver was sentenced to serve 2 more life sentences on top of the one he was already serving. And this is what happened the day Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered in prison.
The black carrot, they went to different islands, capturing people on the plantation and taking them to Jamaica. So what I'm trying to say is from the very beginning of the they were trying to divide, say how there was this division. There was. Because they were bitterly against British. Finally, when they did, they were the ones that were sent from when Vincent so you can see that is one of the things that I chose to tell you. A lack of sovereignty, dependence, and all the other negatives that have been associated with us throughout the centuries of contact with European imperialism. So that is a, you may think it's I don't like it. Having said that, the
same footpath, swing him head and left him body in the bush. Boy, you must feel a choke, finger them not touch. Self a pipe man, for right as hello, carry the book. Hello, the badness to the 10 of them a foot. Them bigger than I know it. Come must be in town with nothing funny, you that tell up. I'm to the fool. You a dead boy, them from me make you wrong move, make a fool. Anything I call them, ready for them. And they see me and nothing normal, I get a heavy passport. No. Sunshine in fire, I'm never care who I love.
Indian Aborigines who greeted Columbus. Unhappy people they were. Conquered, enslaved, and worked to their last ounce of energy, those Indians